Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. It's my turn to moderate now, and I'm thrilled to be your guide for the new film from Spanish director J.A. Bayona, Society of the Snow. Yes. Of course, you'll know Bayona's work from films like The Orphanage, The Impossible, and A Monster Calls, or perhaps you saw his quiet little indies, Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, and The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. His latest project takes him back to the Spanish language to re-examine the 1972 crash of the Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571, which was en route from Montevideo to Chile when disaster struck in a remote region of the Andes Mountains. The wreck of the plane, carrying 45 passengers and crew, including 19 members of the Old Christians rugby team, came to rest atop a glacier, and the survivors began their long wait for a rescue that would never come. Battling freezing temperatures, serious injuries, starvation, and a deadly avalanche, the survivors of Flight 571 spent 72 days alone in the wilderness and had to resort to the most extreme measures to stay alive at an elevation of more than 13,000 feet. It's a story that's been adapted for the screen before, most famously as 1993's Alive from director Frank Marshall. But Society of the Snow reframes the story on the testimony of the 16 survivors of the crash, as told to journalist and former classmate, and I've had a lesson in pronunciation here, Pablo Bierfi. Come on. In his 2009 book of the same name. So let's find out from the team behind the film why the ink was not yet dry on this particular chapter of history. Joining me now on the contenders stage, please welcome Society of the Snow's director, producer, and writer, J.A. Bayona. And we have producers Sandra Hermida and Belen Atienza. Right here, sir.
Great pronunciation.
Thank you. I tried very, very hard. Bayona, I wonder if I can start by asking you to tell us about your history a little bit with this story. How long has it sort of lived in your mind? And at what point did you start thinking about wanting to tell this story?
Well, first of all, this is a very popular story in the Spanish-speaking world, massive story. In Latin America and Spain. Alive, the bestseller that was published only 1 year after the disaster. I think it's a book that we all have at home when we were kids. And then many years later, I was preparing another film, The Impossible. And I was doing the research, reading, trying to get as much information as possible. And then La Sociedad de la Nieve from Pablo Bierfi was published at that moment in Spain. That was more than 12 years ago. And I got obsessed. Somehow, it's been like, as I said, very popular story. It's been like more than 20 books written on this tragedy and 2 films and lots of documentaries. But it was not until I read Pablo Bierfi's book that I was able to see how big, how massive is this story. Even on a level of a spiritual, psychological, even philosophical level. So, to me, it was not an action movie. I was not interested in the action.
Yeah.
To me, I was very obsessed in the drama and trying to tell the story of this man with the maximum realism and the maximum respect in order to make everyone go through the experience, like being in the plane inside with them, and by empathy, by feeling empathy towards them, understand what they did and what they went through.
I think we get even a sense of
but
what
that was more than 10 years ago,
Yeah.
and it's been since then that we've been trying to do this film.
I think you get a sense of what you're describing, even from the trailer for the film. So let's watch that now, just to get a feel for what you've done with this story.
Pregunto para quién serán esas imágenes. Tal vez sean para nuestras familias. Volveremos a vivir en su imaginación. ¿Qué nos pasó? ¿Qué pasa cuando el mundo te abandona? me fuimos a la montaña.
Pablo's book relies on the testimony of 16 of the survivors of the crash. The narrative that you weave, this is the first time that you've taken a writing credit as well on a film, is a little different from that. I wonder if you could maybe explain that a little bit and how the film came together, how the script came together.
There is this question at the end of the trailer that says, "Who were we in the mountains?" And basically, to me, the whole process of making this film was a process of trying to understand who were they when they were in the mountains. And Pablo was always a great help. From the very beginning, that we wrote a first email to the survivors in 2011. He was always very generous. He was constantly in contact, not only with the survivors, but with the families of the deceased. And having them on our side, helping us all the time, was there was a moment that it became very important, because I became obsessed with getting information, as much information as possible, even to the slightest detail. So basically what we did is like we thought about this process of making this story more as an exploration, as if we would be telling a story, because we knew the fact. There was 2 movies already. To us, was a question of recreating every single moment with all the actors in contact with the survivors, in contact with the families of the deceased. They spent 6 months doing auditions, 7 weeks of rehearsals in Barcelona, and 140 days of shoot.
And the rehearsals also informed the script in a way.
Yeah.
So things were coming out in the rehearsals, that new dialogues, the relationship between the kids was also informing the script.
So we basically went through the experience to make ourselves the same questions they did in the mountains.
Well, Belen, you said it just there, the kids. There's something that I don't think really struck me, maybe because I was too young when I saw her live, or maybe because, I don't know, in my mind I see adults in this situation. But you know, the way that the film has been cast, you really get a sense for how young these boys were and what it must have felt like, how difficult it must have been to endure. Tell me about the casting process, finding this cast. Yeah.
One of the things that we spoke from the very beginning is that this is an actor's film. I mean, they were so important. They were the main element to tell the story. Also, we didn't have any more elements, because we basically had a white mountain and a metal tube and the actors. Yeah. So we took it very seriously. Also, as Jay was saying, he wanted to make this film a very immersive experience. So we knew from the very beginning that we were going to look for local actors from Argentina and from Uruguay, and they had to be the age of the real characters. And the real characters, the youngest one was 17 at the time. So imagine, I have a 17-year-old now, which is like my hair stands on it, thinking about that. And the oldest, then there were exceptions with the adults, some of them that died on the crash, and the older was 24, 25. So the range of ages was really incredible. So we started to look for these kids while we were in the middle of the COVID pandemic. So we had to do 6 months of auditions online, which is not ideal, especially for Jay, that he's super demanding. So this was like freaking him out. He's like, online, how are we doing this? So we couldn't do it any other way. So we worked on that for 6 months, and then we finally met the final candidates. Yeah. And after that, Jay asked for something that was key, which is 2 months of rehearsals on a mock-up of the plane. And a lot of things came out of there. Wow. Actually, a bond was created, was starting to build from that very moment, a bond that in the end proved to be really important for the film.
Yeah. Tell me
more. We never stopped shooting. I remember that getting on set, we had a script, and we start to work on the scene, and we will never know where the scene we're going to end, because all the actors were so fit, they had so much information. They were so much, we nurtured them as much as possible. Yeah. So they knew everything about the characters. There was a moment that at the end of the shoot, you look at the kids, they look like family. They knew all each other very well. if somebody was feeling a little sad, the other actors would come, and it was like we created a group that was very similar to the one that happened in the montage.
And a strong relationship was built between the actor and the real person.
Right.
They were in contact,
Yeah.
so they had a lot of the inner information, the emotional information from them.
Yeah. Well, Sandra, I kind of want to pick up on that. This is as we've spoken about. Like, it's a story that's been told before. The survivors have lived with it. For most of their lives now at this point. How important was getting that relationship right with the survivors?
It was totally essential to approach a story based on real events like this. You have to create an intense and really strong relationship with the ones who live it, based on trust. We already had some experience because we went through the impossible, that we create a really beautiful relationship with the family that we still have. But that was quite a lot more challenge because there were 16 survivors and the families of all the deceased. There were 45 people in that plane. That implies a lot of people. So, but we work in the same way that we did in the impossible, being open, transparent, keeping them informed of every step. And what we got was like all the support and help and all the generosity, thanks, from all of them. I don't know, I think what we can say is that we have been extremely lucky to have met this extraordinary group of human beings. We have learned a lot during the process.
Well, one of the things that I really want people in this audience to get a sense of is how high up, how impossible that survival was. And I know that you shot this film at 10,000 feet, I think, in the mountains in Spain.
We shot in the same. Some of the shots in the film had been shot with the actors in the same place where the plane crashed.
Right. And you spent time there. Describe for us what that feels like. Describe for us, because I think you were there at the same time of the year as the crash happened as well. So how can you begin to process what that kind of altitude does to your mind?
Well, this is one of those stories. There is no way to understand what they did, what they went through, if you don't explain the context. If you explain the context right, everybody will understand what happened and what they did. So we basically bet on shooting on real life locations. That made our work a lot harder, but ultimately those limitations were very good for the result. There is a moment, of course, you cannot bring a crane, a techno crane at 11,000 feet, But I was telling all the time, Pedro Luco, our cinematographer, this is like shooting a documentary. So it's going to be very good for the final result. We're gonna shoot it as if we were there. Actually, we were there. So we all the time did the best from our limitations in order to increase that sense of realism that we were looking for.
Well, and I have to ask all of you, you screened the film in Montevideo for the survivors before it was fully finished, but, tell me what that moment was like for each of you.
Yeah, well, actually, we screened it to the survivors and their families, and also to the families of the deceased, of some of the kids that didn't make it back.
It was 5 days before the world premiere in Venice.
Yeah.
We said, we're gonna go to Uruguay. We told everybody we're gonna go to Uruguay. You're gonna be the first ones to see the film.
So we had a theater with 300 people. For us, it was incredible after 10 years to be sitting down on that theater that was totally charged with energy, with emotion. We were so scared. And I also think that they were scared too, because they didn't know what they were going to feel. And it was one of the most emotional moments of the 10 years of doing the film. When the film finished, that we were all in tears, like everyone on the theater. There was a silence, and there was an applause, and everyone was relieved. And when we got out, people were hugging. We got so many messages saying thank you. We were a bit overwhelmed because we felt that somehow there has been some healing through the film, because families of the deceased with families of the survivors meeting together, understanding each other, understanding what people went through
Both went
up in the mountains. So it was like, wow, one of those moments in life that it's worth it. All the pain of the 10 years of putting this together.
And listen, very finally, because we're running out of time, Belen, I want to return to what you said earlier about how much of a demanding prima donna J.A. Bayona is.
We know each other since many years ago.
But even if we didn't, I would still go there. No, I'd actually like from both of you to get a sense for how much fun you've had working with this man over the years and the adventures that you've been on together, and what makes working together so special. In fact, you should jump in here as well, but wait to the end.
I can't wait to hear that.
Wait to the end.
Well, first, one of the exciting things is that everything is so difficult that it makes every day a challenge for your intelligence, for your skills, for everything. In this case specifically, we had like 3 sets up in the mountains, down in a place as a cover set, because we had to be all the time waiting for the weather forecast, because of course we were in the snow. So maybe we couldn't go up, so we needed to find something else. Every day was like a big thing. But in the end, what really mattered was the moment that we set action and Jay started to work with the actors. Every other thing, you forget about that. So I think that's part of the excitement, that it's always difficult, but when you get to the moment of art, it's there. So that makes our work beautiful.
Sandra?
I was going to say that there was that there is everything when you work with JA, but what is more important is like you feel that you belong to something really special that has to be put on the screen. I mean, we have been together since the orphanage. I haven't been in all the projects as well indeed, but I have feel extremely proud, and I have felt that they were very necessary, the films that we have done with him. So besides the tears, that there is tears sometimes, and besides the effort, and we have learned so much, but it is like you end up watching the film and it's totally worthy.
Yeah.
The process,
I think
totally.
there is no way to make the audience feel an experience if the shooting itself is not an experience. And when we finish this film, you should have seen us. We look like crazy Spanish guys, crying like what the actors. And first of all, I'm so lucky to be surrounded by these 2 women producers that are in charge of everything. Yeah. And then, and then the work that all the head of departments did, and that group of actors. I mean, they are like, we are like family now.
Society of the Snow is coming soon. I highly recommend you all check it out. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking J.A. Bayona, Belen Atienza, and Sandra Rieda.